Alright guys, so setting off in this 944, the first thing that you immediately notice is that the clutch throw is very long and the release is right up top, and it is a little bit hard to get used to compared to more modern, easy to drive cars like my Miata, but especially like my GTI and the Rabbit that I had. So now we're on a straight road here, and I'll do a quick pull starting around 2,000 RPM in second just to feel the power. And I'll say, what power? Because there's not a lot of it. But it is a little bit faster than the Miata in a straight line, and it's definitely more torquey down low than a Miata, but it's definitely not a fast car, and by today's standards, it's pretty slow.
3, 2, 1, go. Right 5 long. And right 5, don't cut trees on entry. Left 3, caution, bad camber, rocks on exit. And to finish.
Alright, so now that we got our rally bug out, I got a good chance to drive the car down this road. We were just joking around, acting like it was a rally. And this is a really nice windy road, so it gave me a good chance to really feel the car and give me some impressions. And driving along in this car, it's really fun. It definitely feels a little bit heavier than, say, a Miata, because it is a little bit heavier than a Miata. And it is a little bit floatier. And you really feel it around turns, but it makes it really fun because you don't have to be absolutely flying to feel like you're pushing the car. It's a little bit exaggerated, leaning around and going back and forth as you're going through turns. Now, I wasn't really on it getting the back end out or anything like that because it is a public road, but like I said, it's fun because you really feel the car underneath you moving around down this sort of road. Now, one thing that I will say is this car feels a lot better now than it does when I drove it last year. And the reason for that is Gus did a lot of suspension work. You can go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Yep, so we got, well, first new tires on, which made an absolute world of a difference. Before, it would follow any groove in the road and the wheel wouldn't really track straight.
Yep,
so
and those tires were completely bald. Sorry to cut you off.
Yep.
They're completely shot.
Absolutely shot. And then we got a Coney adjustable yellow suspension on it, so that's their sport suspension. And we haven't actually done any adjusting on it. We pretty much just set it right in the middle and went with it, but it feels great and I don't really feel any need to change it. One thing I'll mention about the handling, which may or may not have been affected by this, is that Porsche recommends some weird tire pressures, and I forget exactly what it is, but there's something crazy, like an 8 or 10 pound difference between the rear and the front. And we have that set up in the tires right now, and it feels great. It doesn't really understeer or oversteer, not that we're able to test that too much, but whether that would really make a difference if we set it more reasonable and even or not, I'm not sure, but that's what we're running right now and it feels good.
Another thing that's a lot nicer now with this car from when you probably saw it in the Miata versus 944 driving comparison is Gus did some work on the exhaust. So you could just quickly say what you did to that, but the exhaust sounds a whole lot better now. It's not obnoxiously loud and it has a really nice tone.
So the exhaust to start was tubular headers, and there's 2 pieces that go to the rest of the exhaust. One of them was cracked. So we replaced both of those with a used set of cast manifolds, which came on the earlier cars, so up to 85.5. And then we also replaced the glass pack with a nice big MagnaFlow resonator, and it's sounding a lot better now.
Another really nice thing about this car is the steering wheel. Now, Gus put in this Momo Mod 78 wheel, and it's Alcantara wrapped, and it feels really good. And it has really nice bolstering for your hands, and it's just really enjoyable to drive this car with this wheel. So one thing that you do notice driving around on these back roads is that these seats are actually really nice. Now, these are the stock seats in these 944s, and they hug you really nice, and they're still quite comfortable to sit on. On a long drive, I don't think I would have problems with these seats, whereas legs start to hurt, and these are just way better feeling than a race seat. And for a street car like this, I think it's just really nice. Other things interior wise with this car, the dash is cracked, but honestly when you're driving it, even though you're looking over it, you're not looking at it, and you're having fun driving the car, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Another thing to note while driving around in this car is you do sit a little bit higher than other cars. Once again, like a Miata, I have a Miata, so I compare it a decent amount, but it's not really a bad thing because you're still lower than pretty much everything else on the road, but you could see over the hood nice, you could see what's coming up really nice, and you do sit above the wheel, so you have pretty good vision of everything that's ahead of you. So contrary to what many people might believe, these 944s are actually super practical cars, and they actually have 4 seats. Behind us, you could sort of see there are 2 more seats back there. So if you have midgets with you or people without legs, you could stuff them back there and they'll be pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
In all reality, those seats are absolutely tiny and would be terrible to ride around in. But if you do put the seat down, there's actually a ton of room in the hatch. So if you do want to bring stuff on a longer trip, or if you want to use one of these cars to, I don't know, get groceries or something, there is tons of room, and you definitely could do that. Whereas a Miata is much smaller and has much less room to carry luggage and stuff. And just getting on it a tiny bit right there, you definitely notice that this has a lot more low-end torque than a Miata, which is really nice on these back roads, so you don't have to be constantly shifting through the gears, even though it is fun to shift, obviously. It's nice to be able to just put your foot down a little bit and actually be able to go somewhere more so than a Miata. I'm getting the hang of shifting it now.
Yeah.
And when you are on power, you do notice that the front end sort of lifts up a little bit, and it's sort of an exaggerated up and down, whereas the Miata's on stiff suspension, so you don't really feel that. And it's kind of cool in one of these cars because it's a really different experience feeling the car once again moving around under you with the slightly softer setup. Another thing to note is that this car doesn't have power steering. What does this have? A depowered menu or a depowered power steering rack?
So this car actually had an early manual steering rack swapped into it, and I'm not sure if that's because the power one broke or if they just wanted it put in. But the manual cars ended in 85.5, and this is an 86, but it has a manual rack swapped into it, which is a lot better than depowering an automatic one because, well, Porsche designed it to be the way it is, obviously. So that's nice that it was done correctly.
Yeah. And this rack, although it does take some effort on slower turns and around parking lots, once you get driving, it's really nice because there is a ton of road feel through this rack. Previously, when we had old tires and the old suspension, you would feel every single bump, and it was kind of obnoxious because you would feel the car following grooves in the road, and every little bump you would really feel. But now it's like the perfect amount of feedback through the steering wheel, and you could really feel the car nice under you and get good feedback of how you're driving. Obviously, I'm in the passenger seat now. I'm letting Gus take me for a quick ride. Yeah, I am. I'm over here, and you're over there now.
It's nuts.
Yeah, that's insane. One thing you notice while interacting with this car is it's a lot more analog than really any modern cars. All the buttons are super clicky and make a loud click noise and give you a lot of feedback when you press them, which I think is really cool. The car definitely is 80s feeling, and it's just really a different it's really a different experience than modern cars. As a passenger in this thing, I will say that there is a lot of leg room, and coming back to the seats, they are really nice to sit in and are good for cruising around and spirited driving, but are also quite comfortable if you were to take one of these on a long trip.
So I would like to mention that in cars like these, people complain about maintenance costs a lot, but it's really not that bad if you can do most of the work yourself, such as basic stuff like oil changes up to things like fixing the radiator hose, for example. You would want to go to a Porsche licensed mechanic or something, and it would cost you a fortune for the hourly wage. But in reality, you can get the part for less than 20 bucks online and you're all set. So I would say if you're mechanically inclined, things like that really aren't going to be that big of a deal to you, and you shouldn't let that much over getting a different kind of car.
So how much did you end up paying for this car?
So the car was $1,800, and we've already listed off the things we've done 1,000 times, but I would say in total we've probably put another $800 to $1,000 into it, and a lot of that is thanks to being able to source used parts on Craigslist and local forums. So that's definitely something you should keep an eye out for. So overall, you got a nice running car that's in pretty good shape for under $3,000.
And it's a nice, unique car. Like, I keep talking about Miatas, but everyone I know has a Miata that's into these little sports cars. And there's only like 1 or 2 kids that I know that have 944s. So it's really cool that you get something different than everything else that's on the road and everything else that's basically a competitor for a small sports car like this. So guys, to wrap up, these 944s are really, really cool cars. They're definitely a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier and floatier than something like a Miata, but honestly, that's part of the fun of it. These cars are basically 10 years older than a Miata, and you feel it driving around, and it's a really, really cool experience because of that. Now, like I said, these cars are a little bit more difficult to drive than a modern sports car like a Miata or even anything newer like a GTI and stuff like that. But that's also all part of the fun, and if you get one of these cars, it's a really neat experience driving around, and you'll definitely be able to have fun with it. So thanks to Gus for letting me drive his car around today.
You got it.
If you're more interested in what's been done to this car since we got it, we do have a overview video and an update video on the channel, so you could feel free to check those out and subscribe for more, and I hope you stick around for the next one. Take care.